Happy Saturday. Welcome to the weekend and welcome to our conversation this week inside our podcast series entitled Intentional, which is centered around how is it that we can choose to find God with us whenever we feel stuck. How can we remain intentional about our relationship with God as we feel stuck? Or, as St. Ignatius of Loyola would describe it, we find ourselves in what he describes as spiritual desolation. Of course, this week we have relied lots on St. Ignatius and his rules for the discernment of spirits. Yesterday we introduced his 12th rule, and today I actually want to skip to the last rule, Rule 14, where he is describing in these last three rules how is it that we not only experience temptation in life, but more importantly, how we might expect to experience temptation when we're ever stuck, whenever we are in spiritual desolation. In Rule 14, he describes the enemy of human nature, the tempter, like a military commander who prowls about the place that he's going to attack, not striking where the fortifications are most fortified or strongest, but he's going to strike where the fortifications are weakest. He's going to look for the weakest point of attack, and there he strikes with temptation. And in that, Ignatius is reminding us to be vigilant about our greatest weakness. And therein he is implying that each of us has a greatest weakness. And of course, that's true for all of us. Now, your weakness today, your greatest weakness today, may be very different than it was 25 years ago. Hopefully that's true as we continue to grow in virtue. But at every point in life, we always have our greatest weakness. We always have our greatest source of or place of temptation. And it's important for us to know what that is, because two people already know what our greatest weakness is. First, God knows what our greatest weakness is, and he's always ready to help us. And second, the enemy, the tempter, also knows our greatest weakness, and it's there that when everything else fails, he will try to strike us there, to tempt us there, especially when we're weakest, most vulnerable, when we're tired, whenever our guard is down, especially when we feel stuck. Sometimes it's important for us to know our greatest weakness when we're stuck in spiritual desolation, but I also want to highlight today that we need to be aware of our greatest weakness whenever our defenses are down. And this is the third Saturday in a row that I'm going to remind us that temptation looks different on the weekend than it does during the week for a lot of us. For a lot of us, we actually are more prone to our greatest weakness on the weekends because we're looking for a little relief from the busyness and stress of the week. Our hair is down a little bit, you might say, and we are looking just to kind of celebrate and enjoy life. And there, when our defenses are down, we are most prone to temptation. I just want to lift that up for you today so that we can be intentional about living for God all the time, especially on the weekend. It's important for us to know ourselves and to know where we are in life, because when we know where we are, we know how to respond. And as you find yourself navigating this podcast series, hopefully it's been life-giving for you, and you're just reminded that it's nice to have another person walking with you. And I can't encourage you enough to continue to pray your way through the podcast series. And I can't encourage you enough to just consider joining a church family on the weekend. And if you don't have a church family, and if you're just kind of listening to these podcasts and you haven't checked us out at Christ Redeemer, I want to tell you that I love the family here. I love Christ Redeemer, and I can't help but brag about her. If you haven't checked us out, come check us out one weekend. This weekend, tomorrow, we're going to talk about the 13th rule that Ignatius has, which is that we need to expose the things in our heart that might kind of lock us in unfreedom. And if you're looking for freedom in your life, I just want to offer you a special invitation to join us this weekend, because I think it's going to be a special weekend. I think God has something awesome for us to hear, and I think he wants to touch your life. So whether we see you tomorrow at Mass or whether we meet again in the podcast series, hope you have a blessed weekend. Keep your heart open to the Lord, and God bless you.